So last class I saw that we were struggling, some people were struggling with getting some of the tools working, so I thought I'd spend time this class making sure that's working. And in addition, then I added a script that will simplify adding information to the evidence journal there by just asking you questions and then turning it into some JSON that can be added. So that'll hopefully smooth that over a little bit. How many people in here actually got signing to work? Well, okay, then I'm probably spending time on things I don't have to now. But so what I did was just want to make sure that everybody can do that. If there are people who are still struggling with it, I'm happy to work through it. The goal here is to try and make this low friction, and it turned into a higher friction activity than I was hoping it would. I mean, I knew that setting up SSH keys was going to be slightly annoying, because it's always slightly annoying, no matter how many times I do it, and I've been doing it for a long time. So what we were originally going to talk is do the dark pattern lab. That's actually going to do, I'll do that next Tuesday instead. So the dark pattern lab is kind of interesting. The module is open for week 3. You should be able to see the videos. There's some videos, some papers about dark patterns. I've kind of mentioned some of these before. These are things like giving you terms of service that no one actually reads, of course. Deliberately creating friction points that try to get you to do what someone actually wants to do. And if your primary goal is to build an application that you can make money at, these are the kinds of things that you want to know, because they actually lead to increased engagement. That includes things like easy to sign up and difficult to cancel. Has anyone in here ever experienced easy to sign up for something and then they just ding your credit card every month for that charge, and you try to cancel it, and somehow they don't really, you send emails to some email box that gets like monitored once a month, and they make it painful for you. They actually make it very difficult to do that. So that is a dark pattern. It's an example of a dark pattern. What was it I just did? Oh, it was an email from Coinbase? Yes, I think they fixed a bug in their email system. And then, by the way, we updated our terms and conditions with respect to our arbitration clause. Arbitration clauses are themselves a kind of nightmare quagmire. Does anybody know what an arbitration clause is? Because nobody reads terms of service. In a normal contractual dispute, you contract with someone to do something and they don't do it, then you can sue them. You can go to a court and you can say, please, you can get the court to rule in your favor and get money from these people. That's mostly what you can get from courts. Under limited circumstances, you can get more. Arbitration clauses take away the ability to go to court. And the primary reason they do them is not because it takes away the ability to go to court, it's because it takes away the ability to join with other people and go to court in what is called a class action lawsuit. You say, you know what a class action lawsuit is then? I actually found out recently that I am a member of I'm a member of the class covered by a proposed settlement with Anthropic, of all people, because 2 of the books that I co-authored are part of the data set that is actually going to be included there. When you see data compromise, big things in the news where somebody gets breached and there's a data compromise, often what will happen years later is that everyone who was affected by that will be part of a class, and that class will get you, I think the last time I saw one of those, it was like $7. It's almost not even worth filling out the claim form for $7. because I have it. It's like an electronic gift card. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? And because people go to court and they get class action lawsuits, they actually can get to court because they'll find some lawyers who will do this for what's called a contingency fee. In other words, the lawyer gets paid when they win the case. So when you actually look at the final settlement, usually the lawyers get between 40 and 50% of the actual settlement, which is why you got $7.50 and they got $7.50 for every person in the class. So it's high risk, high return for the lawyers there. So in order to avoid situations where it's economically effective for people to get together and go to court, what they do instead is they put in your terms and conditions that you can't join up with other people. You have to arbitrate independently with an arbitrator that they get to specify. Now, this is not a unique pattern. I will give you probably a more concrete example of this. It's the same pattern, though, and it is a dark pattern. How many of you have ever used YouTube? How many of you posted a video on YouTube? How many of you ever had a YouTube video removed? Did you get it back? Did you appeal it even?
No, I re-uploaded it without music. That was why.
There you go. Most people don't actually appeal when YouTube takes down their video. People who do actually appeal have I think it's 5% success rate, which is why most people don't do it. And one of my favorite examples of this is I play World of Warcraft. And one of my favorite examples of this is people complain about how Blizzard, which is part of Microsoft now, actually doesn't have customer support. And so someone decided to test to see if they actually had customer support by appealing the ban on their account. But here's the trick. Their account wasn't banned. And you know what the response they got back from Blizzard was? We reviewed your case and we've decided that the evidence is overwhelmingly against you and we uphold the ban. And I love those kinds of experiments because clearly that means no one looked at it. You got a canned, automated response. Those are dark patterns. Those are the kinds of patterns that I want you to be aware of because you will both be called upon to recognize them in your ordinary life as well as implement them, because that is one of the things that happens when we build software for the cloud. Why? Why do we end up doing this? I mean, I've seen so many apps go down this particular path. How many of you have actually deployed a cloud app before? How many of you paid any of the cloud providers for hosting your cloud app or the services you're using for your cloud app? Right. How did you pay for it?
Credit card.
Credit card. Okay. So was that your money or, your parents' money? Your money. There you go. So that's the key to it. And you? Same thing. Yeah, right. You came out of your pocket. Okay. So if you build this killer app and it starts getting picked up, people use it. What happens is you then say, how do I pay the bill for this thing? When it's $5, $10, $20 a month, you don't really care. When it starts coming in a couple $100 a month, maybe you'll start to notice, maybe you're filthy rich and don't have to worry about these things. Some people do. What is the simplest way to monetize your app?
Ads.
Yeah. Because you probably sat there and said, well, I could charge a subscription fee. But what happens when you start charging a subscription fee? I can do the freemium model, which is a common thing to do. Anybody here play online games? Ever played any free online games? somehow they're never free. Almost never. Why? Because they got to pay for those resources. So how do they get you in a free game? Maybe it's ads, right? That's certainly one way of doing it. But most of the games I've seen go beyond ads. So what's the next step? Cosmetics. You mean like mascara and makeup and lipstick?
No, like,
right.
in-game purchase.
There you go. We sell you something that changes the way you appear in the game. People are vain. They like doing that kind of stuff. And what is the cost to a game manufacturer of selling you cosmetics? Yeah, it's pretty low, right? And now it's even lower because you just have AI generate this stuff. And they'll tell you they're not doing it, but guess what? They're lying. So those are the kinds of dark patterns that I'm talking about, is we see these patterns occur over and over and over again. There's nothing wrong with this. I mean, we call them dark patterns because some people view them as being underhanded. And some of them are. But they're all there for a reason, and we all end up using them precisely because we want to build something cool, because we're tech people, and that's what tech people like to do, but we still have to pay the bills. But before we get to that, why have I built this infrastructure for having you record things and whatnot? Is that it becomes evidence of what you actually did, as opposed to what you claimed that you did. So what I found last term was that people would go and fill in their AI log at the end. I was like, well, how many times did you talk to AI and you forgot to record it? And I'm not even saying it's malicious. It's just you're busy, you're in a hurry. You say, oh, I did some of this stuff. So this way, it builds that habit of building the evidence chain, of keeping the information that's necessary for you to demonstrate this. And I say this because it's not just a theoretical problem. There is a real problem right now in the AI community, in academia, where what they get are overwhelmed by what they call AI slop papers. Somebody sits down in front of Claude Code and has it, or Gemini, or OpenAI, or whatever your model is that you want, and they say, yo, friend, vibe me an academic paper that I can submit to NeurIPS, or ICML, or ICLR, the three big AI conferences. Has anybody been to any of those conferences? Turns out they show up in Vancouver regularly. Usually there's at least one a year here. I think it was ICML last summer. And that's because we have a venue that can fit the thousands of people that show up to this. I think the ICLR this year is in Rio de Janeiro. So Vancouver, Rio de Janeiro, I don't know, you take your pick. What is the problem with this AI slop paper thing? Yes?
One thing I could think of is potentially, like, I think you mentioned there's copyright issues because you also wrote a book.
Copyright issues. It's an interesting perspective. For the conference, in fact, the biggest issue is somebody has to look at it. And normally they expect those papers to be reviewed by humans. So here what we have is an amplification problem. How long does it take you to generate a 12-page paper for a conference when you just vibe code it together? Maybe you should try that. I think what you'll find is that you can turn something out that's a piece of shit. And I mean that I actually mean that exactly the way I said it, which is it's a junk piece. And you can turn that out in maybe 15 minutes. It'll have a bunch of very questionable, very dubious citations, but they'll all look very credible, and you can then submit that paper. This is not unique to these AI conferences. It actually is happening across the industry. It's happening all over the place. So what you do in order to show that you actually did work is you record it. That's what we're doing here. We're saying, this is how I can say, this is what I did over the term, and this is how someone looking at it can realize that this is genuine. It's actually a good practice anyway, because now it also establishes that you invented it, that you did it, that it's your work, not someone else's. And that can be important when someone else comes along and says, you know, I think you just vibe coded this paper. Maybe it's a really bad paper. How many of you think that you can tell the difference between AI-generated papers and academic-generated papers? Human-generated papers? How many of your profs think they can do that? Probably more than of you think that you can do that. Yeah, I think that's a little bit of honesty there. And so one of the things that I observed is that if you just simply required a chain of evidence like this when you submitted a paper to an academic conference, it wouldn't really add much burden to an author, because I don't know about you, but I don't sit down, well, maybe when I was an undergrad, did I sit down and just write papers from beginning to end? Yeah, not really. You write it, and then you edit it, and you rewrite it, and you change it. Well, in an academic paper, it's even more so that way. When I'm writing papers, I put them in Git. I keep logging my changes as I'm going. So it's not creating an onerous burden, and that's why I did it this way. It creates a discipline for you to basically record, to journal what you're doing over the course of the term, and do it in a way that then is clearly a demonstration that you did something, and you did it when you said you did. It's forgeable. To build an unforgeable system is actually a little more difficult, and I decided it's not worth it. In fact, there's kind of a pedagogical point to that. If you figure out how to forge it, you learn something. Now, it's kind of like teaching people how to break into houses without anyone noticing, but it's still a skill set, and everyone needs to have skills. All right, so is there anyone who needs help getting this working? If you all have it working now, then I don't have to spend a lot of time on this, and it will make for a shorter session, which I'm sure will make everyone happy at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Maybe I should have asked the other question. How many of you actually have it working now? Because people will usually not raise their hand to claim they claim they've done something they haven't done. Do you need help with it? Do you need help getting this? So you have the signing working? Okay. Anybody else? I mean, I don't have any problems helping people. I want you to succeed here. Did you get it working?
I was able to push and commit even.
That's it.
Signing.
Even without signing?
Yeah, even without signing. It's supposed to auto reject, right?
Yeah, it should auto reject it. It rejects it for me when it's not signed.
My changes go all the way to GitHub with no signature. Like, I specifically tested without the -s commit, and it still let me go all the way through. So.
But did you sign anything before that?
No. Like, the first commit was the auto setup that you did when you provisioned.
Yeah, and that's signed.
The second commit was specifically I didn't sign it because I wanted to test it and just let me.
Great. Has anybody else been able to get code to not be signed? Did it work for you too?
Well, I'm committing and it says verified on GitHub, but when I do,
Oh, so when you look at it on GitHub, it says verified?
yeah, but
So it is signed.
if I do git log show signatures, there's no signature. So I don't know if
I
that's
think
something.
I saw people talking about that online.
The locally, right. So sometimes I think that happens with SSH. See, I use GPG code keys, so I see them signed on my local machine. But I think with the SSH, I think it's wonkier.
It works works normally for me.
It still has to be signed though. Like on GitHub, it also.
Okay, all right. Well, that's what I'm asking is that if you go to GitHub and you look at it there, does it say it's signed?
Give me 1 second.
Because I'd be really worried if GitHub wasn't working for one person. I'd be like, what is special about him?
Where is it supposed to say like? Oh, it says verified. Yeah.
There you go. Okay, good. Now I'm used to things like not working when they should, but having them work when they shouldn't is actually a little alarming because it's a failure case you don't actually detect very easily. It's like, how many of you have ever done backups before? You know, the test with backups isn't the backup. What is it? When you run backups, how do you know the backup failed?
When you need to use it.
You try to restore it. It's like the worst time in the world to find out your backup has failed. One of the failure cases I use in 4.16 is exactly that, where a backup process that was supposed to save them from catastrophe had actually broken and no one had noticed that it had stopped working because the product that they were using to do the backup had updated versions and had just silently been not backing things up. I think they ended up actually going to a really old backup and recovering from that. I don't remember quite. So, all right. Right, so if you see this get logged, you should see the signature there. If you're not seeing that, I think we already worked with somebody who wasn't seeing it. But the most important thing is if you can push to GitHub, then it should work. I put these together. It's probably only like half the class here now, so hopefully the people who are having problems with this still will at least be able to look at the slides, or if somebody you know in class asks about it, you can say, hey, look at the slides, they're there. Nothing special there, okay, great. And then I added this tool. And since we didn't have to spend a lot of time debugging the signing process, now we can spend time debugging the let's import this tool in the automated way as opposed to the manual way. So the manual way is you can actually just go to where is it? It's a script called evidence.sh that is in the, I know I put this link somewhere. Where did I put that? It's in the GitHub. Let's see, it's github.students.cs.ubc.ca. Huh, can't reach that page. Lovely. Well, it's not talking to me right now. Why not? I don't know.
Is it this one? Yeah, that you can access it.
So, I misspelled it UBC. There we go. That's why. There we go. Perfect. Okay, yes. So it's going to be student template. That's the one. Let me go rip this off and put it over here. So if you go to the student template under tools, evidence.
Mine's for 416.
Oh, well, that probably won't work very well now, will it? Okay. I just grabbed it by the name here. Well, you know, I'll just go here, and then I'll go back here, and then we'll go find student template. Perfect. Down to tests, tools, that's it. Tools, evidence.sh. And you can just import that if you want. The other alternative, which is what I'm going to walk through, since we're not spending a lot of time on this. Okay, so right, so the point is that once you have that, it's behind there. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, once you actually have, the script there, you can either, it'll take command line options, or it'll ask you what you did. And then it'll create a signature for you. Yeah.
What does it do with the commit hash? Because previously we were grabbing the commit hash from the previous.
That's what it's doing. Right, you can't really do anything else. The other way to do it would be to commit it and then grab the hash and use it in the next one. That would be the other way of doing it. Either one of those is viable, but since we're not doing this, we're not really building a correct blockchain here. So that's why I said you can spoof this if you really want to.
So I'm just trying to clarify. So should our evidence be committed and signed afterwards, but then claim it with them including the previous ones?
Right. So you create a file. That's your evidence. Let's say you create a markdown file. You answer one of the micro reflection log things, right? And then you just go over here and you just type evidence and you say create a micro reflection, and that should actually be all it takes. Right. That will build the log, and then you can do the push, and it will just work. You don't have to do the push right there. You created the entry already, right? It's like you did a git commit on it is basically what it's doing. It's just automating that process. And the key to the automation isn't that it's automating the push, it's automating the build of that stupid little block of JSON logic. That's what I was trying to simplify, because I looked at that and I said, this is just a bad idea.
So if you're doing for example, the weekly micro
Yeah.
log, or you just wanted to use the screenshot for evidence on, I don't know.
Just stick it in a directory and then point to it.
Should we just say so we just fill out the claim as
Yeah.
this is the evidence enforcement point and command.
I mean, if you really want to be fancy about it, grab the screenshot, put it in a directory, put a markdown file, reference the screenshot from the markdown file, and then explain what it is you did, and then link to the markdown file. That's fine too. The goal here wasn't to make this some elaborate thing. The goal here was just to simply get in the habit of journaling, because that's basically what we're actually doing here, and then adding it to your repo so it becomes part of your history or your log. Yeah?
So you're not programmatically verifying anything. The fields could be broken, some evidence stuff could be missing or empty fields.
Okay, so what is supposed to happen here now is that every week, next week hopefully, I still haven't heard from one of the TAs, but every week, some percentage of people, 20%, 25% of the students, should be getting formative feedback from TAs who go and look at your repo, and that will be one of the things they look at. They say, what does your evidence actually look like? And the goal here isn't, because it's formative, it's not summative, it's not graded, it's actual feedback, because what they should be doing, assuming that I hear from them, what they should be doing is actually giving you feedback on what they're seeing there, and suggestions on how, trying to ask you questions that would challenge the way you're thinking about the problem, suggest things that are missing from what you've done, and ways that you might improve on your work. I mean, I don't expect them to write novels. I was thinking that, a couple of sentences, but it also provides me with a mechanism to get them to give me feedback if there are students who are struggling, so that I can identify that more quickly, so I can then try to work with you. Not that I'm implying that you're struggling, but so I can work with struggling students to try and help them be more successful. Because that's all I really care about. Yes?
I was just wondering if it's possible to provide a very simple example of the complete journaling process for simple tasks. There's a lot of terms like claim evidence, the AI journaling, all that stuff, and just trying to see, okay.
So you want me to just simply open up an editor here? Let's see, what can I do?
One entire just workflow of exactly what everything you want for one claim, everything you're supposed to do in a workflow or kind of.
Let's see if I can actually get this up and going. So if where do I want to do this? Maybe I should go there. I can't do it from that one. That's not going to make it work. Nope, don't do that. All right, let's see. So, and you won't be able to see this for a moment. Let me see if I can figure out if I have something here I can use. Not really. Actually, it's, yeah, I do. Now I have to turn around and find it because I actually created a test repo here. Let me go see if I can find it. Was it here? I think so. Yeah, there we go. So I created a test repo because I actually tested to see if I could integrate it with the base repository, which we're going to get to in a second. And now I'll come back over here and git clone. It didn't copy it. Why did it not copy? There it did copy it. Okay. So let me see. I can go here. Because there's nothing like typing behind your head. Okay, so I come in here, and I don't know, let's say I go to evidence, and I don't know. Microlog. And of course, I've got this discipline of writing year, month, day, because of course it sorts correctly alphabetically. This is too many years of organizing things so that it never shows up quite right. Let's see. What is it? Bang. No, that's not what I want to do. The only thing worse than trying to do this is doing this behind my back. I think it's this way. I can never remember exactly. Is it? I think it's parentheses. You know what? I'll just do it the other way, which is to do here. And of course, I reversed them. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. It's got lots of mistakes in it even. So I do that, and then I come over here, and I do right. Let's see what it actually now generated. I didn't put it there. That's where I was supposed to put it. Put it in evidence logs under that date. I did something useful. There we go. You don't really have to be very creative about it at all. Evidence logs 2026. Right. I forgot that. Right. So we went. I moved away from the JSON because it was too difficult to understand. So it's just a markdown. There you go. So literally, you can actually use that to encode something really simple. You know, very simple act. There's nothing complicated here. It's generating that. Git add dot git. I just created this, so I'll have to use -s. Probably would have made more sense if I had done git commit. You have to use -m. This is a lot easier when you can actually look at it. Okay. Since I have just set up the template, I have to actually go and fix that now. Let's see if I cat CPSC .git config. This is the way I remember it. I go look at one I've already set up, and then I say, this one's not set up. Have I only been pulling from that? I've only been pulling from it. There we go. So.
I do it manually before because we don't have script.
There we go. So what I had to do is actually go to the other machine where I've been doing most of my work, which is my desktop system. And there's no easy way to do this. This is painful. Actually, you know what? That's what I can do. SCP.
No, it's not. Unfortunately, I think there's some reflection. It doesn't make sense. Oh wait, I made it. Never mind. Oh shit.
So what I'm doing is I'm grabbing, that's my config file on the machine at home. And like I said, I never remember these. I do this enough times, I will actually start remembering them. So you have to set the email address correctly. And then, so I have to do git config user.email. Insert, there we go. And git config user.signing key. And then that's, the signing key is of course this value right here. And then I need to copy that. So it's commit.gpg sign. Now if I type git commit sm sample log entry. All right, and this is the TTY issue. This is so much fun. I have to look this one up now because there's a specific change you have to make to the TTY to get GPG to work right. You wouldn't have to do this if you don't use GPG. So let's see if I can find that TTY. And of course, where did I look it up last with? Perplexity. So I go and look at my Perplexity log file and I say, here it is. And back here, and there we go. Yes. Export GPG TTY. There we go. And then there. Beautiful. See, low friction. You didn't push it yet. Let's do a get push. There. All right. So.
Quick follow-up. So in the evidence block that you added, you had what was it? A specific point. I forgot what it was called, but there was an enforcement point. But so does that mean you would have already done the clause commit?
If you've already done it, then you would put it there. But maybe you just simply wrote a description of what you're planning on doing. Then you don't. Well, it's,
But it can be after the fact, though, right?
yeah. So you just add another entry, right?
So does that mean you would have signed that together with this all collectively, or that was signed already done separately? And now you're
So that's just building an evidence block. It's not doing anything. It's not doing a commit. So when you bundle up your commits and you send them all in, then that's when it's going to create an actual get submit. You're going to have a separate commit for that. So you could do multiple evidence blocks. So for example, now that we've got this flow going, I could even do that, which is, let's say I just simply did another one of these. See how easy this is. All I had to do was 436 different commands. There we go. I'll do this. Claim. I can do this again. Not applicable. Not applicable. Oh, I see. Oh, great. And it's not editable. Even better. I love working at the terminal. Okay, and so now what I have is I have a new block there. I can do this again. It probably won't work if I use the same title, though. Actually, it might. Let's see. And again, it can't be empty. There we go. And again, and A, done. So now I have two things. I do a get add, and I do a get commit -m, more stuff, get push. And if I look at that, I mean, I can see that the commit is there. If I want to look at it in detail, obviously, I can diff it. So.
Is it okay if we still maintain the evidence log manually? If we, like, have
Yeah, that's fine.
additional
I mean,
features?
I looked at the evidence log and I said, this is kind of complicated.
Okay.
And what I might do, I mean, I was going back and forth on this yesterday. What I might do is actually add to that later. So right now we've got a simple thing that gets people going, and I don't know if I'll do it this term or next term. I'll probably write a real tool, an actual Python script that just simply prompts you for information and builds the evidence block for you and simplifies this, because we can do it all in a script. There's no reason this has to be manually done.
I see.
That would decrease the friction. But who knows how much friction there is until you actually do it. And I've been doing this over and over again manually because I've had to set all these repos up and whatnot. So it's painful. Every time you set up a new repo, you have to go back through this process. All right. So where are we? That was, I don't know, was that useful at all? Oh, okay. Well, I always worry that I'm going to bore people.
Wait, so after you did this, at what point would you have completed the AI log? Then now after you've done the evidence, is now the time for us for this entire task you just did, assuming you use some AI, maybe. Would you now do the AI log? So like, just trying to get a workflow.
I see. Okay. So normally the AI log would be what you do when you interact with an AI and you use something. I'm not asking you to log every single conversation you have with AI. I just want you to log the substantive ones. And the substantive ones to me are where you asked it a question or you interacted with it and you walked away and you said, this is bullshit, log it. This is great. or this was useful, but it was wrong, log it. Or this was useful and I learned something from it, log it. So the idea is just to simply say, because it's really easy to sit there and to be working with AI and go, this is a waste of time, or this thing is lying to me, or I think this is a good idea, and then later you figure out that it actually was BS. And sometimes you actually ask it questions and it says things that are like, oh, wow, that's actually pretty cool. I mean, I've been doing more and more of that when I'm working with AI, not all the time, but I pulled all of my conversations with ChatGPT and Claude down from Anthropic and OpenAI, and then I built a tool that would extract conversations from them, specific conversations that I was interested in, because I had been feeding data back and forth between them, and I was actually able to get Claude Code to build me a little script that would then build a markdown file with the flow of the conversation. It was pretty cool, right? But most people don't have, 50, 60 round conversations with an AI. Most of them are very, very short, very transactional.
Are we restricted to the free tier of the AIs?
No, good Lord, no. No, would you like, if you want, I can actually run it. I think I have Olmo on here. I like Olmo. I'm sorry?
The slides mentioned, and I think somewhere in the canvas also mentions like twice that is like we're supposed to use the free tier, but what you're
Oh, free tier for AWS.
No,
Free tier for the cloud.
for any like
You can use free tier for anything you want. I'm not restricting you from using paid tier for AI. I mean, okay, everybody here has an actual GitHub account, right? So everyone has access to Copilot. So you get access to ChatGPT 4 or 5, and you get access to, actually it's 5.2 for ChatGPT, and it's 4.5 for Claude Opus. So you can use those through GitHub. You can use, I mean, if you have your own account and you want to use it, I'm fine with that. If you want to use a free local model, how many of you have a GPU on your laptop? What do you have? Yeah, what GPU do you have on your laptop? 3070 Ti. So, he's not going to be doing heavy lifting with that, but he can run reasonable size inference models. What is it, 16 gig? 12, 16 gig? 12 gig? Okay, yeah. So a lot of the limit is actually the memory. Once a model doesn't fit in memory, then it becomes a lot slower to run inference on it. But if you want to run inference locally, you can do that as well. I'm perfectly good with that. Let's see. In fact, in my tool tray, because I run it enough, I have, there we go. Which model did I use for this? Yeah, this is actually interesting because this is a cloud computing question, no less. And then it moved it back to the other screen. How lovely. It hates me. There we go, that's better. That should actually size up correctly. Fine, don't care about that. Let's see this was CodeLlama. So I was using CodeLlama 7b, and I asked it a question. Should I use Redis or Memcached? I used it as an example, this exact example last term in 436C, and actually gave a pretty good answer. And this is a local model. This is a 7 billion parameter quantized, locally runnable model on my laptop, and I got decent performance from it. How many of you have Macs? Right, so you get the benefits of using your entire RAM as GPU memory because you've got a unified memory subsystem, unless you're on a really old Mac. But let's see, right now it's not actually loading any. I only have a couple here. Llama, CodeLlama, GPT OSS 20B. 20B is I think I can actually run that one. New version, remind me later, because everything's always. So let me start a new one. Let's see. Give me a question to ask here. What are the benefits of using a container rather than a lambda? And this is always high risk because I'm now literally running a demo in class on something I have never tried. And this is slow. Interesting. It's a bigger model than I usually run. Oh, it's still loading the model, that's why. The little bar there, the little blue bar that's not quite across the thing, it's still literally loading the model into the GPU. So it should be faster once it's done. Isn't this fun? This is like, skydiving without a parachute. It's great until you land. All right, it should be loaded. There we go. Okay, so now it tells me which model it is. This is GPT. It is in fact the OpenAI model. This is the open source model. It is the 20 billion parameter model, and there you go. I'm getting inference on it. This is local. This isn't running off the cloud. This is actually running locally, and I actually have a 5080 GPU in this one, and I bought it specifically because I needed really bad. I needed that GPU. I do enough inference, it's actually worth doing it. So a couple of people asked me about doing document scanning or document generation using document manipulation tools in serverless. And so that's one of the reasons I was like, this is a good question, because why would you use serverless versus using a container? Serverless has size limits on it. Serverless also has a cold start timing penalty. So it takes a while to get a serverless operation running. And this gives you some size limits and whatnot. Only a 512 megabyte temp directory in a container. But I mean, this is actually a great example, right? I could actually copy and paste that into a markdown file someplace and then use that as part of my log. How many of you have actually run local LLMs before? It's pretty easy. I mean, it's surprising how simple it is. You download Olama or VLM or VLM if you're using Linux, or this is LM Studio, and they all work. They all work pretty well locally, assuming you got the hardware. I don't know, what do you have on yours? What GPU?
A GPU? Let me check.
He doesn't even know.
CPU is sufficient for like a 2.0.
Yeah. If you're using really small models, micro models, small language models and whatnot, they actually will run fine. This is a pretty beefy model, and this is OpenAI's. This is their most recent open source model, which was released about, I think, 6 months ago. So it's not radically old, but it's not frontier either. It's and you can download lots and lots of different models. How many of you have used LM Studio? Anybody? All right, it's the same person. I mean, if you want to play around with these things, you can do this, you can download it, and the benefit of doing this is that you know what you do isn't being shared with anybody else. It's running on your local hardware. So this is kind of an interesting thing to talk about in a cloud computing class is, here's how you avoid using the cloud. But you can learn about the cloud from this not using the cloud. So there's pros and cons to it. That was kind of a digression. Let's see here. We're done there. Anything else interesting here? We've pretty much gone through. All right, that's what you get. So I've already mentioned next week I'm going to talk about dark patterns, and I've kind of done some of that. Right, so dark pattern design choices. The video is actually pretty good. It turns out that the dark design started about 14 years ago. And there's still a talk from 14 years ago that's pretty on point. But that person has since done a lot of work, and they've got a whole group now that puts together these videos. So there's a page, several short videos are like 5-10 minutes each, but it's really useful in learning these patterns and understanding how they're actually used. So, you know, trick consent. Have any of you ever heard of Ticketmaster? I have actually seen the code base. Let me just say, it's huge and it's old. It's older than almost anyone in this room. It was weird to look at. I could see the dynamic ticket pricing stuff and all, you know, how they, mostly what we were looking at was the stuff about ticket validation. And so when you get, you know, if you have one on your phone, they can scan it with the scanner and how that all works and whatnot. But it's very interesting. It was an interesting project to look at. The Roach Motel, I mentioned that one, right? It's easy to sign up and it's hard to leave. One of my favorites is the friction point, which isn't listed on here. And that is, I find that when I go to sites and they have a cookie policy, they will ask me every time I visit the site, they will ask me as long as I don't accept all. The moment I accept all, they stop and they don't ask again. So one of the reasons that we talk about things like enforcement points is that if you actually say, you tell people that your workload is isolated, how do we actually know that's true? And that's a whole issue in the cloud where they don't often guarantee that your workload is isolated. They'll say it is isolated, but then there's all sorts of CVEs, all sorts of security compromises, like the Azure point one, Azure Escape, the Azure Escape example. We won't sell your data is a really good one because, of course, what they might do is they might anonymize it and sell anonymized versions of your data. It turns out there's a whole market in de-anonymizing data. How many of you have heard of data brokers? It's a great business to get into. It's essentially a data aggregation business where you take data from multiple sources and you then coalesce it together so that we can sell complete dossiers of pretty much everyone in US, Canada, Europe, I suspect in many other jurisdictions as well. So we'll talk about that more. Blah, 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 blah. I will do this check-in because I want to make sure I'm getting feedback. One of the things I did is I added an anonymous feedback form. Please use it. I don't know why people think I'm mean. I'm actually not. I mean, I really want to fix things when they're broken. God knows there's plenty of broken things in the world, so there's lots of work to do. But if you're more comfortable doing it anonymously, it's a Google form, so it's as anonymous as you can get using Google. How's that? I won't know who you are, but Google will probably know who you are because they have a fingerprint on you. But okay, pretty low risk. And then that will show you the link to the Google Sheets page where all the things that people have asked about are there, and then I have a column where I will try to address those. I didn't hook it up to a pager. It doesn't page me or send me a message or make my phone shake when there's a new one there. So I will try to remember to look at least once a day. But and of course, you're always welcome to ping on Discord. Part of the benefit of Discord is that I don't really know who anybody is there, and you guys probably haven't figured out who I am yet. If there's anything blocking you, is anybody blocked on anything right now? Maybe I have to be careful. Is there anyone who's not blocked on something? That is hard to parse. All right, let's keep going. Anything you want me to touch on next week or do differently or change? What would make it easier for you besides not having class at all? Nobody else has a better thing to do between 3:30 and 5 on Tuesday and Thursday. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. All right. Biweekly check-in number 1 should be done, actually. Is that right? Should have been done today. Yeah. Yeah, and just start using the evidence block thing. That's fine. And then this is the first time it's the second time I actually updated the template. The previous one I updated some README files, so they didn't make a lot of difference. If what you'd rather do than copy that script in and use it is you can actually add the template to your repo, and then you can pull from the template. If you do get, right, so you do a get fetch from the template. The problem is that because they have different bases, you'll have to use the allow unrelated histories. They're the same files. It doesn't really matter. And then in the future, all you can do if you want to just pull those is do a get pull. Get pull template main. And let me just say that writing that slide took like an hour because I had to go through and find all the different variations and realize that Git is an abomination. So like if you do Git fetch, you use, I think it's get fetch. If you use get fetch, no, it's get merge. If you use get merge, you have to use this form, template / main. So it's repo branch, but down here you don't put a slash between them. And if you put a slash between them, it gives you an error. And it's like, this is the most unfriendly UI I could have imagined building. And command line UIs are already unfriendly, right? Yeah. All right. Any questions? Any comments? Any feedback? Are you just sitting there looking, going, it's time to go get something to eat or drink or sleep or play video games?
What exactly is enforcement points?
Okay, so I'm going to talk about them more next week, but the basic idea is if you make a claim, we don't sell your data, how do you know you're not selling your data? I mean, in fact, it's a really interesting thing. It's a good question. It's like, what would you do to say we're not selling your data? And the answer is that's actually not going to be automatable. It's going to end up being something that has to be done manually. But let's suppose that you say we only store your data in Canada. Now you actually have a way you can enforce that, which is you always check to make sure that the data is going to someplace that you can verify is in Canada. And you could do the sloppy thing, which is actually just simply use some string. Oh, if it's on AWS, it must be in Canada. That might not be very strong, but you could do that. Maybe, I mean, is there anybody here who's not from Canada? I want an example besides Canada is what I'm looking for. So anybody from any place other than Canada? No, okay. Where are you from? Sorry? Pakistan. Right, so if he insists that all of his data be stored in Pakistan, then he's going to have a different problem to solve than you will have. I don't know that Amazon has a data center in Pakistan, but that's a wonderful example. Thank you very much. I couldn't have come up with a much better example because one of the things I know when I started looking at large language models is that most of the large language models we're talking about or dealing with are either coming from the US or China. Cohere is actually Canadian. Mistral is European. But beyond that, there's like almost nothing in South America and Africa. There are South American data centers now. I think Amazon has a couple of data centers there, but there's like nothing in Africa. And it's really interesting when you start talking about geographical control of where data goes, and you realize that that's not always possible when, and I like thinking about those things because I like to realize that, well, I like to find my biases and my assumptions, especially when you're doing cloud computing and you're trying to build a globalized product. You really need to think about these things. How would I actually enforce that? So if the enforcement point becomes, or the enforcement, if the claim is we don't ship it outside of the allowed jurisdiction, how do you actually implement that?
I was gonna ask, like, relating to that, how deep does our claim have to be? So, like, you mentioned that, like, we could just say we don't upload anything outside of Canada,
Mhm.
and we'd upload it to like a database hosted on AWS that's in Canada, but like Amazon could move the data wherever they want.
Right, so now you can qualify it. You can say, we enforce that by only allowing to be uploaded to this particular data center because we have vetted that it's in Canada and we have a contractual obligation with them in Canada. Or maybe they don't have a contractual obligation, it just happens to be in Canada right now, in which case you say, because AWS currently is in Canada. So some of this is about being honest with what you can and can't actually enforce. And part of the reason I think this is important is because it gives you clarity into what you're claiming versus what you actually can enforce. Because if Amazon, let's say you contract with Amazon and they say, we promise we won't move this outside of Canada, and the US government subpoenas them to move that data into the United States, guess what? It will get moved because the US has already asserted this and done it.
But if your claim was we don't upload anything outside of Canada,
And now he's going to wordsmith this thing, okay? And you could say that we upload it to Amazon, which we believe is in Canada. That would, I think, would be a more honest kind of statement. I mean, this doesn't have to be public. Imagine this is inside of your engineering organization where you're trying to make sure that from an engineering perspective, you're being honest about what the requirement is and how you're satisfying it. It just becomes murky because we don't usually think about the promises that we make externally, because that supposedly is what engineering management will do. But I will tell you the truth, engineering management at some point will blame engineers, software engineers, they will blame the software engineers for mistakes because that's the corporate game these days. How many of you have done internships or worked for companies? How many of you believe that the company had your best interests at heart? Well, that's good. So at least you're not living inside of a bubble. Right. How many of you have heard horror stories about the way that companies will treat people? One of the things that I've learned about LLMs, they all understand the concept of malicious compliance. Do you know what malicious compliance is? What's malicious compliance?
Following instructions to the letter, but not the spirit.
Exactly. And do you know why all the LLMs know about malicious compliance?
Because
They've read Reddit. The entirety of Reddit. Everything that's been posted in the malicious compliance subreddit has been pumped into the LLMs. And I think there's like 800,000 people in that subreddit. It's a huge subreddit. People love it because everybody's been in that situation. And the best part is I've seen them exhibit malicious compliance. So you're not the only one. They do it too. It's really kind of interesting to see what has ended up in them. I have to admit, I haven't tried that with, I haven't explored that with, I have not observed that with the Chinese models that I've used. I've seen other behaviors in the Chinese models that I have used, but not necessarily malicious compliance. But the whole idea that they can actually engage in malicious compliance is great. It's pretty humorous. All right. Any questions? Other questions? Those are good questions, and I'm rambling. I do that too much. I'm working on it. That's why I'm asking questions and not and leaving those uncomfortable pauses.
For the example that you just gave, so would we, because I was reading some of your documents, would we not have to do a red bar test to, you give an enforcement point, so you can
Once you start putting it into code, and you're actually encoding it, the model is that when you build a test for this in your code, then you start with a failing test. In other words, you haven't implemented the policy yet, make sure the test will fail if the policy is not implemented. Then when you implement the test, the test goes green. Now you know that at least at one point, the test failed when you weren't doing it. The test is passing now. Think of this as your gift to the next generation. the next person to inherit your beautiful, absolutely inspired code. And they then don't realize this is important, and they change it, and it breaks. That's the whole reason for building these kinds of tests into the system.
Okay. And we'll have that for every claim that we make, so this cost control test that.
If it can be tested using an automated test, and you're claiming it in your actual capstone, then yes, then there's an expectation that you're going to actually have that. If you don't have it, don't claim it. That's basically it. You can say, this is future work, this is something we should do, but don't tell people that you've implemented a feature that you haven't actually implemented. Don't tell them that you've guaranteed a promise that you actually haven't guaranteed. You can say, this is a promise I'd like to add in the future, and that's a good engineering discipline anyway. Because otherwise, what happens, how many times have you looked at something, a product, a piece of code that says it does something, and you find out that it's just stubbed out? Probably your own code. Right, so the goal is to just simply be honest about what you've actually done. I mean, otherwise you're lying. You're just not being truthful to yourself or to others. All right, and that's it. Yes, almost it.
For building the claims, it's like on Tuesday we had to make the 3 claims, right? Like that's related to our capstone. So like those 3 claims have to be related to the capstone. So we have to like make the proposal first. Or this is just an example.
No. They don't have to be related. I mean, when you get down to actually building your capstone, so you may have a lot of claims that you explore and experiment with here, and you can say, this is what I'm claiming I did. I asked GPT OSS 20B a question, and I got this answer back, and I claimed that it was wrong. I mean, you can make a claim like that. But when you start getting into your code, what your code should actually document and say is, this is what the code does. This is how I know it does it. Because that's what I'm going to be looking for. At the end, I'm going to be saying, how aware were you of what you actually built? Because one of the patterns that I have seen, especially from students, is that they build the system they wanted, or they claim they built the system they wanted to build, not the system they actually built. And I assure you that the number of people who underclaim and overbuild is vanishingly small. The people who overclaim and underbuild is much, much larger. And I see some heads nodding. So, it's like when you work in a team. I don't know if you're going to work in a team or you're going to work solo, but if you work in a team and you just get busy and you participated early on, but now you're busy and so you didn't really contribute as much stuff, but you told people that you were done with it, and you expected to get back to it and you didn't get back to it. I don't know if that's ever happened to you. He's sitting there smiling. No, it's never happened to me. I've never been that person. That's great. It's okay. It happens to most people. You're just special. The point is that now your teammates are also on the hook for that. So now you actually are not being honest because it benefits you. It's because you don't really want to hang them out to dry. Maybe you do. This is kind of a perverse sort of system where you actually joined a team to sabotage them. There's no game theoretic reason to do that here, though. So, and of course, I have the individual reflection as part of the capstone, which is you talking about the project and what you did, so that you can, if you get into the middle of a team and you find out that they're actually kind of not pulling their weight, you can actually write a separate report and get some credit for that. So that's always the risk with teams. It's like you get into a team, the team is great, you get to the end and you go, wow, I couldn't have done this much work without them. And then you get into a team and you're like, everybody thinks that they're sponging off everybody else, and we've got 2 days to submit this thing, and it has a nasty smell to it. How's that? So I'm trying to minimize the risk that you're going to get into a bad team, not that there are any bad teams, and without requiring that you make that upfront commitment, if that makes sense. I don't want you to fail. I mean, I want you to leave the class and say, I learned something about cloud computing. My eyes are much more open about the fact that I am basically being manipulated 24/7 by people building cloud computing products, and life goes on. All right. We are definitely done. And it's not even Friday yet. I'll see you next Tuesday. Hey, how are you?
Good. So I was just confused about like last class's claims. So like what are those?